folks for coming this evening. My name is Ed Hollinger. I'm the interim head of school here at Hudson Montessori, and we're delighted to have you all back. I know this is a special place for you folks, and I think you all know you're welcome back anytime, but particularly glad that you chose to join us here tonight to talk about your experience and share a little bit about where you are now in your journey, and we're eager to hear their stories. Stephanie Hectorn is joining me this evening, and we're going to just have it fairly informal. We have a few questions we want to ask you, but we want it to be conversational. So let's begin. Stephanie, why don't you start us out?
Well, I've had the pleasure of working with some of you at school, and then of meeting you or hearing about you from Mrs. Ludick, all the things you did in middle school. But it would be so wonderful for everyone to hear about your experiences here. So if you want to just go down the line and give your name, where you are in school right now, high school, college, or out in the work world, that would be great. You can start with Christopher.
Great. My name is Chris Schroeder. Graduated from Ohio University last year, business degree. Currently, I'm working for an information technology company called Blue Chip Consulting Group. It's a Microsoft platform optimization firm, so everything that we consult with is through the Microsoft Enterprise Suite.
I'm Sophie. I just graduated from Baylor University in Texas in May, and I just started at Neomed this fall. So that's pretty much who I am.
I'm Garrett. I go to the University of Akron. I'm currently a senior, so I'll be graduating in the spring, pursuing a political science and criminal justice degree.
I'm Joey Randazzo. I'm a junior at Western Reserve Academy. I play baseball.
I'm Alex Randazzo. I'm a sophomore at Western Reserve Academy and play soccer.
Yeah. We're so glad to have all of you here tonight. Thank you for giving your time for this. Maybe we can start down with Alex this time, and if you guys need a minute to think about this, you can. But I'd love for you to share a fond memory you have at Hudson Montessori School, or one word that you use to describe your experience here.
A fond memory would be the New York trip in middle school. That was one of my favorite trips that we took here, and I made some really good memories at that trip.
I think the thing that sticks out to me the most in my memory is sitting in the Garden Lane building, cutting kilts for jam, and listening to Christmas music during the holiday season.
And I have to comment on that because a couple of alumni, including Joey, have come back from high school and continued to cut the kilts and help the business, the middle school business, which is really wonderful.
One of my favorite memories was probably doing the Hudson study, and that was when we spent an entire week or so in downtown Hudson meeting with government officials, local business owners, and enjoying the community and studying what this great city had to offer, not just being in the classroom, but out in the community.
Building on that, I think that was some of my favorite memories as well. Just growing up in Hudson and needing to learn about the city and appreciate it.
Yeah, kind of building on that as well. I mean, Montessori kind of provides a platform for exploration, from the get-go. If you have a passion, something, you can really dive in deeper to that. We had the exchange students come when we were in 7th grade, and that was just a great experience, really understanding, their culture, where they came from, and, based off that, that's really what triggered a path for me further down the road to pursue a Spanish career, further out within my education.
I'd like to pick up with that, and some of you have alluded to this. Just talk a little bit about some of those sort of other kinds of activities that you've been involved in, outside of your school program, outside of work, just general interests that you have that may have been sparked by things that you've done here when you were a student here. Maybe you want to pick up on that.
Yeah, I mean, just continuing off that, I built a relationship with, one of the students in particular. He ended up, his brother came the next year when I was a freshman in high school, so I established a relationship with them, communicated with them ever since then. So you know, basically it's kind of built a lifelong relationship between me and them
Good.
up till now, which is, you know, extremely special to have. You know, enables you to really, you know, go outside of your comfort zone and, you know, understand other things.
Good. Yeah, thanks. Sophie, how about you?
Well, I don't know if this exactly answers your question, but one of the things that I really took away from my experience was just learning how to be independent. I think that's really helped me on my journey because I went to Hathaway Brown for high school and I went to Baylor for college and I didn't know a single person going to Texas, but I decided like I'm gonna go do my own thing and leave, so I just feel like the independence that I got from Montessori really helped me do that.
Were you involved in any activities at your high school and at college that you can attribute to some interest that was part of here?
Well, I've been a horseback rider, everyone
Okay.
knows me.
Okay.
I
Okay.
ride horses and I used
Well,
to.
I don't know that, so thanks for telling me.
Every day after school, I would put on my riding boots and leave and go to the barn.
Okay.
I'm not really involved with that anymore now that I'm in school,
But it was a significant
Yeah.
part of your school experience. Okay, good. Karen, how about you?
One thing that, particularly the middle school, taught me was to get involved, whether it's in the classroom or out in the community, and to take that and to try to be the change or some sort of change in the world, especially if you're not happy with something that's going on. So at the university, I got involved with student government, and right now, I'm sure you probably hear in the news that they're making a lot of news headlines right now, and students aren't too happy. So I excelled in now a leadership position with the student government, so I'm trying to help get involved in that avenue and take care of my fellow students that way.
And some of that interest was sparked while you were here?
Yeah, for instance, even just learning how to conduct a professional meeting setting. We had our council meeting every week.
Yeah.
And, you know, we could bring our issues to that particular meeting when everyone came together and discussed, you know, the problems that we're having or how we were gonna conduct business in the classroom for that next week.
Yeah.
So that really helped trigger this involvement with student government.
Okay, good. Joe, how about you?
Well, building upon the thought of getting involved, one thing that I got involved in immediately after middle school and kind of during middle school was youth ministry through the church.
Yes.
And that really helped me in many ways that the middle school also did, and it built upon those learning experiences and independence that we talked about. You know, getting involved, helping out in the community, not just within my small you know, facet of the community.
Very good.
Middle school really taught me leadership, I think. I went into high school and I was asked a few times to speak in front of some of the open houses that incoming freshmen were going to be attending with their parents, and I really felt comfortable talking about my experience from transition from 8th grade into freshman year at high school, and I think that the middle school and Montessori as a whole really helped me to feel comfortable talking in front of others.
Excellent, thank you.
Also, in addition to maybe some of the clubs or the sports that you guys have been a part of, or Spanish class, I think some of those activities have continued to be a part of your life as you've moved on. If any of you could speak to how you may have continued some of those interests, hobbies, or academics in high school or college, that would be great.
You can start.
You want to start?
Well, my family started the soccer program here at Montessori, and soccer is something that runs in my family. We all play soccer, so that was, I had my mindset on continuing that into high school, and I'm still playing today, but that was like really the base of when I knew I wanted to continue to play.
Something that I got involved in middle school, specifically with the creative expressions program, was graphic design and digital art. And that's something I've continued to work with in my high school career and plan on pursuing in the future.
One thing that I continued was, like you said, was Spanish. So I took the opportunity to study Spanish in Spain for 2 months out of one summer semester. So I went over there, lived with the host family, and improved my Spanish nearly 100% from when I got off the plane. So that was a pretty cool experience.
I too continued Spanish in high school and in college. And actually my freshman year at Baylor, one of my Spanish classes, I was invited to speak at Texas Tech at a Spanish conference, and I was able to meld my interest in medicine and Spanish. So I had a whole speech on modern medicine and how it relates in Central America to like the focus.
Yeah, I would also say Spanish, but also along with just taking a keen interest in world events, what's going on, you would always be talking about what's going on in the world. So, continually staying current with what's going on, the current trends in a multitude of areas is something that, I just continue to focus on as I go over.
Chris, did that go back to you bringing your article, article in Upper L to share?
Pretty much. Never ended,
Capitalizing on what you all have said so far, what would you say is the one thing that impacted you the most from your time at Montessori with where you are now in your studies, your career, your life? What
Probably, just the communication aspect is extremely important, from, when you start in school to when you move on to college, understanding how to communicate with your professors, just talking to different people, finding out, where to get the information from, because that's one of the hardest, parts of, learning something. Where do I find the information? How do I access it? And that's something that, we learned, from Montessori from the beginning all the way through middle school, was learning how to dig deeper and dive into the information rather than just, skimming the surface and saying, I understand this. So definitely understanding how to, really dig deeper.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Yeah, building on that, we learned a lot of really important study skills, and also in middle school that we would always talk about was professionalism, and I think that's really helped me as I've gotten older and done interviews, and just like having that background as a middle schooler, just like how to be professional, both in an academic and the real world too. So.
For me, it would be experience, and in children's house, we had, like Chris was saying, a lot of communication, so you always had about 3 grades per each class, and that continued up and through middle school. And the older kids were expected to help the younger kids, with their academics and studies if they had questions, because you may only have 1 or 2 teachers per class. So you had to rely on your peers and, work through difficult situations together, and that really helps build teamwork abilities that a lot of people don't have in the real world. So it helps build that sense of community and team building aspect.
I think that something that has stuck with me from the middle school is what we talked about, grace and courtesy, that was instilled in us early. And that has helped me, specifically in my interactions with adults, really showing respect and then kind of commanding respect for myself as well. So that's helped me in my communications with adults and kids my age alike. It's helped make friends early, help draw the respect of the teachers that I have. It was really helpful.
The microeconomy for me in middle school really helped me to develop a base understanding of how our community is one with Hudson's community, and really gave me a great understanding of the outside world and business.
I'm going to ask this question specifically to Chris and Sophie and Garrett, just having been outside of Montessori a little bit longer. But looking back on your experience here, what would you say sets Montessori apart from other schools in music learning?
I just want to say, the open environment, digging into your passions, what you're really interested in. Obviously, there's a curriculum that you have to follow. But if there's something that you really take a keen interest in, then you can go for it. And that's something that's really important as you get older too, depending on where you work or what you do. Just relating into a consulting aspect, You get assigned to a certain area of the company, and they're expecting you to perform. So if you take a keen interest in one area, then you get a certification, you work towards that, then you're showing, that you really are interested, you work for yourself, and then all comes back to Montessori from the beginning of just, going into something that you really are interested in.
I guess for me, I've already said independence, which is really helpful, but building on that, just being able to kind of figure out for yourself what you like to do. Like in middle school, I was really interested in writing, and I still am, and Mrs. David and Miss Kate would always encourage me to really just delve into your own interests. And I always felt that I could, explore whatever area I wanted to, and I was never tied down to anything, and really just see what my interest was.
So can I follow up on that? You said you're interested in writing. How does that play out for you now? Is that just your own creative writing, personal writing, or are you doing it in an academic setting? Can you talk a little bit about both of those?
I don't really get to do it in an academic setting now, just because I'm studying medicine and there's not a lot of room for that. But there are, I'm in a professional development class, and there's a lot of writing involvement. Being able to explore writing younger has helped me, and I took a lot of writing classes in college too. That was required for my degree, so I just felt that I was well-rounded.
I think with, Sylvie just said, she was well-rounded. I think that really applies because your academics all are cohesive with one another. So you might be, reading something in history, but then writing about it in English class, and then translating that somehow into the mathematics and sciences. So everything is just kind of turning, each and every day, and you would constantly engaging with the material in different ways. So it helps you, to gain different understandings to apply that knowledge. And coming out of Montessori into high school and then college, I felt as though I was well prepared and leaps and bounds ahead of my peers because I had the ability to ask more difficult questions or analyze the material a little bit differently.
Garrett, you, I think, answered the question that I was going to have next, and I'll start with Alex if you want to go with this, but talk a little bit about that transition to the next level of learning. And Alex, it's probably most fresh for you. Talk a little bit about your transition from here to Reserve Academy.
Well, the middle school that I came from, we had a really small graduating class of 11, and going into a class of 100 students per grade was a little bit of a big transition for me, but I adjusted really well with communicating and talking to new people, and that helped me make a lot of new friends, and also talking my communication skills with adults and developing relationships with all my teachers and advisors was really helpful in my transition.
Okay. Joey, any thoughts?
Well, I have a brother in middle school now, and hearing him sometimes complain about homework load has brought me back to when I was in middle school, possibly complaining myself a little bit. But I realize now, looking back, that made my transition to freshman year a lot easier. At nights when I would come home and do homework, but I was able to get that done quicker and more efficiently than other students were with my time management skills that I had learned in the middle school. And that gave me more opportunities when other students were doing homework to find other aspects of my high school that really spoke to me and really helped me to become the person I am today.
Right. Garrett, you, I think, have already answered the question, but anything you want to add to that, just about your transition that you remember?
Yeah, I distinctively remember sitting in my freshman year of high school English class, and the teacher assigned us our first paper, and it was a 3-page paper, and all my buddies were looking around and were freaking out. Oh my gosh, a 3-page paper! And I'm sitting there like, that's it. So I think this is really, especially with the middle school, did prepare us to move out into that environment where by the time I got to college, I was over prepared.
Okay.
Yeah. I would actually agree with everything you just said. I felt prepared, if not
that's not a bad thing.
No,
to
it's
over-prepare.
not that big at all. So I felt that the transition for me at least was easy. We only had 9 people.
Not really.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I kind of had the same thing going from 9 people to 90 girls in class. So that was tough, but I felt so academically prepared that it wasn't tough.
So the number really didn't matter. The
Yeah.
fact that you had 9 and you were going to 90,
Right.
what
I
was
didn't
important
feel-
was your preparation for it, so that
Exactly.
was an easy transition
Yeah.
for you. Chris, anything to add?
Pretty much everything that they said, and just, everyone learns in a different way, whether it be they read their notes by hand, or writing, understanding how you learn, how it fits you best, so.
Okay, good. Miles and Hallie, welcome.
Sorry.
No problem at all. I don't want to put you on the spot, but we're addressing the question about your transition from here in 8th grade to your next level. Talk about that a little bit, what that was like for you, and then maybe how that translated to the next transition for you.
Definitely. Well, my name is Miles from Markham, and I went to Western Reserve Academy, and now I'm at American University in Washington, D.C. So for me, the transition was incredibly smooth. I went to high school with kids who went to all sorts of different schools, tons from Old Trail and other schools in the area that are kind of competitors to this school, and they're all good friends of mine. But the transition was incredibly smooth. You're learning a ton of new information. So very quickly, all the math you learned, all the science you learned, everything's going out of date very quickly. So it's not really what you learn, it's more how you learn that's important. And so that's something that Montessori definitely prepared me very well for. Because, after 2 years, it doesn't matter what math facts you learned in middle school or elementary. It's really how you learn math, or really any other study. And one thing that I know that really benefited me coming out of Montessori was the presentation skills. That's something that wasn't as well taught in other schools, and it's really difficult to teach something like that. But I think Montessori did a very good job of preparing me for presentations, and that's something that still I use every day in college. And whereas math facts I learned in middle school aren't that relevant anymore. So.
Okay, well, I went to Interlochen Arts Academy right out of middle school, but then junior year I transferred to, at the beginning of junior year I transferred to Hathaway Brown, so that's where I am now. And I think the biggest thing sort of that affects me today as a student is I notice, when we get a test back or essays back, I find a lot of my classmates sort of picking at the teacher to get a couple more points up, whereas I think I would rather step aside with the teacher after class and figure out what I got wrong and why I got it wrong, so that I can understand the material better. And so that's probably the biggest thing that I notice, is that I care slightly less about the numbers and the grades that I'm getting, as long as I'm learning to the best of my ability. Yeah.
And you attribute that to what you
I attribute that to this, for sure.
Thank you.
I might tack one question
Yeah,
here
sure.
on the end. I've heard a lot of you talking about either traveling or global schools and making change in the world. I don't know if everyone will answer this question, but if you've done any traveling or service learning or semesters abroad, if you could talk about that experience a little bit, that'd be great. Okay, and then speak to that.
Well, I actually did two. I spent 2 months in Spain and then 3 weeks at the University of Oxford in England. So I have 2 different experiences, one studying a foreign language and then one actually I studied British politics and history and British society in Oxford. So that was an experience that was totally different from Spain. So I think that was pretty cool to be able to work with students from all over the world at Oxford, and engage in not only with the professors and with the information about British politics, because it's very fascinating, but the school that's over 1,000 years old, and my particular college, which was Exeter College, was the third oldest, and that was 700 years old. So to be able to live there and to eat in the grand dining hall that looked just like Harry Potter. That was a phenomenal experience.
I actually spent a summer at Oxford as well, but I was at Christ Church.
Oh, okay, yes.
So I was
Really
right
Harry
where
Potter,
the
yeah.
where Harry Potter basically was. But but I just feel like relating this back to our middle school experience and getting to travel so much, because we went to New York City, we went to West Virginia, we went to DC. And just being able to learn how to be like courteous and a visitor and appreciate. I feel like I carried that through my high school and traveled abroad in college as well.
I have a soft
Yes,
question. Part of what appeals to me in terms of this curriculum for my kids, I just have an innate sense that, or hope that they would have a better chance of finding work or employment that they love, or finding their path along those lines. Is that confirmed by your experience, or when you compare yourself to your peers, or do you have any sense of whether you might be in more alignment than folks that might do a more traditional curriculum?
Good. I was just going to say that I think a Montessori student is really going to find the work that they excel at and that they enjoy, more so before what they find out the salary is. Because in the classroom, you do pick what you want to study directly. If you want to study something in government, you can do that. Or if you wanted to study something in the sciences, you're able to do that. So I think having that foundation from a young age of picking what you were interested in and going after that, someone who is in the working environment will, do a self-evaluation. I don't like where I'm at, so here's what I'm going to do to change it, and here's what I'm interested in, and this is the route I'm going to go. Whereas someone in a more traditional setting that is used to being more instructed as to this is how you're going to do it, and this is what you're going to do, they might be less apt to do.
I think for me, just the open curriculum that I talked about before, being able to say, I'm interested in that, I want to learn more about it, and see, that's just carried through with me, because I'm not afraid to try things. In college, I was medical humanities and chemistry major, but at one point I was like, maybe I'll be a business minor, tried it, didn't like it, but I wasn't scared to try it. And I took on the honors program, I was one of the only people that was not a humanities major, like in English or history, because we were required to take 2 of like history and English classes per semester. So I was one of the only science people, but I liked it, so I thought I'll do it anyways. So that's just for me, my Montessori experience. If I want to do it, why not?
And do you guys have any thoughts on socially, as you've moved through the different schools? That's one of the challenges of just the small classrooms here. And for us, we're a Hudson family, so we're kind of now separating ourselves from the Hudson schools. And did you find any challenges in terms of making friends in the different environments? Or just was interested. Go ahead.
Well, Interlochen is a boarding school in northern Michigan, and so I completely stepped away from everything that I knew here. And so that school particularly attracts a lot of international students and a ton of people from all around the country. It was unique because it was a boarding school that didn't simply attract people from the state that it was in, and so it was really interesting for me to be able to step in and see all these different cultures and backgrounds of my peers. And so I think coming from this school where it was so small, I think our class had 14 people. That might be, I think that's accurate. Yeah. And then going to a school where there was 500 people. That's still not that big for a high school, but it was still, I was so interested and to get to know people, especially of different backgrounds, that I think I was just so genuinely curious